is a Thursday. It is championship rings, and in a surprising twist, because this guy doesn't really care about hockey at all, but we are starting with gold medal because this is a golden episode of championship rings, because not only did the U.S. women take home the gold medal, but for the first time since 1980, the U.S. men took home the gold medal at the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina. And in an interesting twist, whether you call it serendipitous, coincidental, ironic, I'll let you decide that. The final score in both the men's and women's gold medal games was 2-1. They were both in overtime, and both were against our arch nemesis, Canada.
I didn't know that, so thanks for filling me in on that. I was unaware, and thank you for coming in so hot tonight on this 110th episode of Championship Rings. Quick reminder, by the way, that I'm Brandon Woods, the host of Brandon's World. That is Josh Ungar, the host of the Younger to the Max Sports Room Talk Show. I know over the week we have promoted our friend of the show, Jalen Sandvik, to join us. He had a late family emergency. He may or may not make it. I just wanted to get that housekeeping item out of the way. But Josh, you know, I work very hard during the week, as you do. You know, I'm up every morning, as I'm sure you are, mostly before 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't love to get up on the weekends very early, but I had to wake up. I set my alarm. For the first time ever, really, in the history of my life, I watched the Winter Olympics, and I watched a hockey game on television from start to finish. And I got to say, it was compelling hockey. It was physical hockey. You could feel the intensity and the pressure of the moment. And I thought NBC, from Mike Tirico introducing to Kenny Albert and everybody on the call, did an excellent job. I still think hockey is remotely very hard to watch on television, and it does not mean that I'm going to get involved and interested in the sport. But this is a big moment, and it does show. You know, I've been arguing for months and years on the show that patriotism, arguing this country, may be at its lowest point. It may be dead, and politics aside, damn you. I think the one place that it does still show up in is sports. And I think that it showed. And for the first time since 1980, at least on the men's side, we can definitively call ourselves here in the United States of America the best hockey country in the world.
Yeah. And what made this even better is NHL players were actually allowed to be in the Winter Olympics, because that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, I was told this by a friend the other day, something like they weren't allowed to participate in the 2022 Olympics and the 2018 Olympics because the NHL owners were so scared that they were missing 2 weeks of the season. To me, I never understood that excuse. Like, you guys are rich. Hockey's a rich game. Out of the four major sports, it's clearly the one that's least known and least talked about. You guys are not going to lose thousands and millions of dollars pushing the season back 2 weeks. Go enjoy the world. And, you know, I think this was a tremendous exposure for not only the men, not only the women. And I don't know if it's going to boost presence in the NHL or not. But what it does is, and I think Mike Tirico said this very eloquently, that while people, you know, out of the four major sports, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, the NHL is clearly on the back burner. Sometimes you just got to sit down and watch hockey, and that's what the Olympics are made for.
Plus, if you watched the Four Nations last year, you saw how intense USA-Canada really is. It's not just another game when these two play each other. Like, these players truly, truly care. It's one. I know we're talking about our top 5 rivalries. It's one when USA plays Canada, it is must see television.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to classify it because it's not team versus team, it's country versus country. So, like, that rivalry is sort of somewhat already built in. And I was unaware. I had thought that Canada, was the gold standard in hockey and they had won all these gold medals. I was unaware that teams like Russia and other countries have bested Canada for the better part of the last few Winter Olympics as well.
Well, yeah. Um, I think the last 2 Olympics, that's partially because NHL players weren't allowed to be in the Olympics. So that definitely changes the dynamic of everything when it comes to who's
Oh,
playing.
I didn't think about that. So NHL players for Canada were not allowed in the Olympics at that point either. Then
Correct. And
okay,
so, like, with Canada, you've got Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, some of the top stars in the NHL.
well,
All
Crosby
playing.
didn't even play in these Olympics.
No, he did, but he suffered an injury, I believe, in the semifinal, where they were actually down 2-0 against Finland, and they had to come back and win that game. So that makes this whole story even more compelling. And it was just such a classic USA Canada game. I had no expectations of it being like a 5-0 type of game or a 6-3 type of game. I fully expected it to be like a 2-1, like we ended up getting, or 3-2, maybe 4-3. They usually play these very tight, down to the wire, physical type of games. It is so much fun to watch. It's why I love the sport of hockey. Like, there's just something about the game of hockey itself. I've tried to make the argument for years. It's the most unpredictable sport of the big 4. And I know people have tried to argue with me that Major League Baseball is more unpredictable because pitchers can throw like 9 or 10 different pitches at you. I get it.
I think out of all the 4 major sports, and I guess if you want to go to soccer as a 5th, you can. But I think that out of all 4 major sports, I'll agree with you in this way. I think hockey and the NHL, if you will, is the hardest sport to build and continue a dynasty.
I'm talking about the actual game itself, though. Like, when
in terms of unpredictability, I think it all depends on talent. I think hockey is right up there with baseball, where it's definitely more of a team sport than an individual sport. But we've seen, stars, obviously, what Wayne Gretzky did back in the day. We've seen what Sidney Crosby's done. We've
Alex
seen
Ovechkin
in Washington. So there's that. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be a hockey expert here, but it is hockey is, to me, like one of those sports where it's like, it's there, but you don't really watch it. And then there's always one big moment a year where you sit down, you watch it, you go, yeah, that's cool. But it's not like oh my God, I have to sit down and watch this type of thing.
See, that's where you and I are completely different, because I have grown up being a hockey fan. I follow the game. I try to watch as many games as I can. I am a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. I have been for most of my life, honestly. I remember watching that 2009 Game 7 Penguins-Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena and just being on the edge of my seat, like, what is this? Like,
no, I was on the edge of my seat for the U.S. into the game, obviously going into overtime. And I will say this, I do like the fact they went to 3-on-3 in overtime. I think it's more offense, it's more urgency. You're on the edge of your seat, especially because it is for a gold medal. There is nothing like the last 5-ish minutes of a hockey game tied score, because you feel like every breakaway chance and you feel like you have so many opportunities to get the puck in that net. But I thought both goalies, by the way, made fantastic saves. It looked like multiple times both teams were going to score right at the end of regulation, and there was either a dust up or a glove save. That's the moment that makes hockey really intense. It's like it happens all of a sudden. It's very similar to baseball, where like, oh, the bases are loaded. It's a 2-2 count. All of a sudden, one swing of the bat, and bam, the game goes from a tie game to a 3-run lead. In hockey, it's like there's not a lot going on, and bam, all of a sudden, here's a breakaway, and the game flips on the change of a skate or the puck.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of what you're referring to in Major League Baseball is like Game 7 of the World Series last year between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, where wasn't it Will Smith that hit the game-tying home run?
Yeah, but that was, and again, my memory is a little fuzzy. I believe that was a solo shot as well, because they had 3 solo shots. I'm talking about like the David Ortiz moment, 2013 against St. Louis, where you have a tie game. That was the year of course, the Boston bombing in Fenway, which I'll always remember Game 6, because it was the bottom of the 8th inning. He hits that bases loaded grand slam, and all of a sudden you go from a tie game to the Red Sox are World Series champions.
Oh, I think you might actually be referring to the ALCS against the Tigers when Jackson like flipped over the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Don't worry. But
right, well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll let you get the last word on this before we move on, because you're the NHL expert on the show.
No, I love this. Connor Hellebuck, the starting goalie for the U.S., he is actually the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. He, as you said, he made some unbelievable saves, 41 of them alone in the gold medal game. And some of them, you watch the replay and you're like, how did that puck not go in? And Jordan Binnington.
Wait, did you say he was the goalie for the U.S., but he plays for Winnipeg?
Correct.
That's unique.
Yep. Jordan Binnington, the goalie for Canada, he plays for the St. Louis Blues.
Okay. See, because you said he played for Winnipeg, and it didn't compute in my mind that he was born in the U.S. for a second.
Yes. He plays for the Winnipeg Jets, but he plays for Team USA. They both, like you said, made some unbelievable saves. Just to tie in politics a little bit, during his State of the Union last night, President Trump said Connor Hellebuck will be receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, it's obviously very interesting what's going on in that realmscape, and the men obviously visited, and we're in the State of the Union. There's been speculation as to whether or not the women are going to go or not, which I do think that is ordered an underrated story that, we have focused the majority of the topic on the men. The woman also won gold, and no one's talking about it.
Yeah. By the way, there's Layla Edwards, who was on that U.S. team. She's from Cleveland Heights.
Yes, you're right.
So, and what's cool is I can now say I saw the gold medal winning team because I was at the rivalry series here in Cleveland where the U.S. played Canada for the women.
Yeah, that is really cool.